I can't wait to share this conversation with Laura McCowan. She is one of my favorite people. We're going to go deep on The Bigger Yes. It's her 6-week online program where she teaches us how to get closer to those big questions and figure out what the heck we are supposed to be doing in this world, because deep down, we all know. We just have to get back there. And we're also going to go deep on her story. She's going to share her story of addiction and recovery. We're going to find out some of her favorite tools in recovery. So stay tuned for this conversation with Laura McCowan.
Here, we want to show you what's possible in the world of sobriety. We introduce you to the various tools, programs, and resources available, because there are way more options than you may even realize. We want you to find the one that works for you.
And we do it through people. People who share their pathway to recovery and will help you find your path to freedom. Because getting sober can feel hard enough. You don't have to do it alone. I'm Sarah Roberts.
And I'm Roger DeVoe, and this is Sobriety Starts Here.
Oh my goodness, I couldn't barely sleep last night. I've been so excited.
Really? Oh.
It's true. I've been so excited to have this conversation with one of my favorite people, Laura McCowan. Welcome, Laura.
Hi. Thank you. I'm laughing because I have this big microphone, but whatever. This is kind of how I live.
This is how you live. This is how it looks. This is getting real. I love it. So what I really want to do with you right now is to delve super deep and do a big deep dive into The Bigger Yes. The Bigger Yes is your amazing program that you offer, and I know that there's one coming up. We're recording this in the middle of March 2018, and I know you've got another one coming up. So I want to talk about The Bigger Yes. What is The Bigger Yes?
Okay. So, and the registration just opened. I just sent out the email before we talked.
Amazing.
So this is fun to talk about. So I created The Bigger Yes. It's a 6-week, it started out as a yoga workshop, 3 hours long. And I was teaching it, and midway through teaching it my second time, I thought, this is insane to teach this in 3 hours. This is I want to spend a lot of time talking about these things because it's big stuff. And so I turned it into a 6-week program, online program. And it's really about locating and telling the truth and getting really clear and aligning yourself to your deepest longings. So purpose really is what I focus on. I wholeheartedly believe that we all have a reason for being here. We all have, in yogic terms, it's called the Dharma, which is a path, and we all have one. And this is really about finding it and honoring it. And for a lot of people, that means just establishing the basic faith that it's there for you.
I love that. Establishing the basic faith that we all have a calling there. I mean, no matter what we all believe in spiritually or otherwise, I believe that too, that we are not just here to, that cliche, we're not just here to pay bills and die, people. There's a reason why we were put on planet Earth. So I love it. So obviously, you're a sober woman. You're somebody who is in, I think you're 4 years sober now.
Just about
4 years. So is this for women and men in recovery, or is this for anybody looking to find their deeper purpose?
Yeah, it's for anybody. I get obviously a lot of people that are in recovery because of what I write about when I talk about, but it's for anybody. But I think it is a question that a lot of people who get sober are faced with.
Yeah.
Is what am I doing? I mean, that's what happened to me. It's like I got sober and I looked at my life, and so much of it didn't match me. Mm-hmm. It matched it is still a sort of blotted out version of me, or it really matched what I was chasing when I was drinking, which was a lot of fun, a lot of what was easier than, I couldn't go deep on the big questions of what I was doing here.
Well, we don't have time. We like, for one thing, we just
no,
don't
I was
have
very
time,
busy.
right?
We're very busy.
We're very busy drinking every day, but it's so true. Like my whole life was wrapped around, getting through the work day so that I could get to, the bar or the pub or the, person
or recovering from it.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's too hard you're never quite on top of, you just can't. You can't touch down on that stuff because you're just constantly managing kind of a crisis.
It's so interesting because before you came on, I was just sort of doodling while I was just waiting for us to start chatting. And I was just thinking, when did I first start getting acquainted with you? And I wrote the word chapstick and I showed that. And I think that's just funny because you were talking about, kind of being able to keep track and what's going on with your life. And I remember that post that you put out about chapstick, about having chapsticks all over the place, never knowing where to find one. And then you finally kind of had a chapstick from start to finish. And it was like this
epiphany, like, oh my God, this is actual growth, because it's such a perfect, analogy or metaphor for how we live. Everything's all over the place. Everything is chaos. I couldn't see things through. And the first time I finished a chapstick, man,
that's success.
It was success.
I totally understand that. So tell us about the experience of the Bigger Yes. You mentioned it's an online program, so that's amazing. So everybody can access it, which I love, because as much as there's so much power in face-to-face, belly-to-belly, eye-to-eye connection, and I love, in real life retreats and all of that, it means that we're not able to reach all of the people that we want to reach. So tell us the experience of the program. So it's online, and then what happens? Is it video?
Yeah. So it's 6 weeks, and each week has a core topic. We start out with faith. I really wanted to talk about God. Like, for me, and everyone has a different name or belief system or whatever. But I really gave myself permission to talk about faith and belief in a God as the foundation. And so we talk about faith, and people are really surprised at what that brings up for them, because I don't talk about it in a way that's like, we're not doing Bible study. It's like, do you have an abundance mindset, or do you believe in lack? And do you think that things are going for you or against you? Or you in a constant struggle against the flow of life?
Within the context of faith?
That is how I talk about faith, is looking at it that way.
Yeah, and what I love,
it's not like, do you believe in a God in the sky? It's more like, do I have a belief in that things are going for me or against me, like a fundamental belief? So I talk about it in those terms. So we start out with that small, light subject, and then every week we go through. What I tell people is, a lot of people come in one of two ways. They either just have this feeling that they're not living the life that they really want to live, but they don't have something in mind, right? And the other people come with something in mind. Like, a lot of people come in with, I know I don't want the job that I have, or I know I don't want the relationship that I'm in, but I have no idea how to get the courage or the clarity to see my way through it. So people come in one of those two ways. And then the second week we go into truth, really telling the truth about what our lives are like right now. We go into clarity, which is where we really distill down, what is the bigger yes? What is your bigger yes? And then we go to alignment, which is how do we arrange our lives so that they are pointing towards this new North Star. And then devotion. So it kind of loops back to faith. Like, how do I create how do I live my life in an act of devotion to this thing? So it's a lot to go through. A lot of people have taken it twice. I have a lot of people that have signed up now for a third time to go through in 6 weeks. But these are the things that I've loved talking about my entire life. And they're the questions that I had to answer for myself, and that I'm still answering, honestly, in sobriety. And
I think it's interesting that you say that you have liked to talk about these things for your entire life, because I can relate to that. I find that when I was drinking, I just tamped down so much of who I really was. Like I talked about bullshit. I talked about the stupidest stuff. Like I look back on some of the conversations and relationships that I had while I was actively in my addiction. And I'm just like, that was so not who I really am. Mm-hmm. And I think that's such a big piece of what you are aiming to do with your work, is really pull out of us who we really are. Yes. Like you even talked about that abundance mindset, or do you have like, are you limited in your life? Like, how do you, like, what is the fundamental truth for you? And let's work from that place. So it's about really
wherever it is. Yeah. Yeah. And so I just, with this, I have co-taught a lot of things. I have co-hosted show. And this was the first thing that I just really did on my own, and decided to not hold back at all with what I wanted to talk about and how I wanted to talk about it. So I love teaching it. It's like getting to sit there and rap about the things that you just love geeking out about for 6 weeks. And I mean, of course, that's when the class is going, but I feel like the curriculum is a culmination of, all 40 years of my life.
And that's the way I feel too. It's funny because you have co-hosted a lot, and there have been many times in my life where I've not hidden behind other people, but where it's just like, let's work together. Let's do this.
You share
share the work and share the and share the and to mitigate some of the fear that's around putting yourself out there. But when I saw that you were doing this, it was like, yes, I mean, we need your voice. We need to hear from you. Yeah, I love your perspective. Your writing is spectacular. I mean, I know you're still writing a book, and I just can't wait till that time comes, but take your time with it, because I know everyone's like, when's your book coming out? So when it's ready,
it's coming. I have it. It's going to be out in September.
Amazing. Excellent. Okay. Well, maybe we'll have you back on and we'll chat about your book at that time. So you mentioned about the Bigger Yes, where you teach about these things. So are you video lecturing and then, okay.
So just the structure of it. I do a video lecture for each week that they get at the beginning of the week. So I'll have a talk on faith. They get that, and then we meet in a live class the following week to have a discussion about it.
And is that
and in that with the lecture they get it's okay. In the lecture they get worksheets. They're pretty simple, but big questions that they fill out. And there's also reading involved. I developed the course around the book The Great Work of Your Life by Stephen Cope. And we sort of follow that. It's really the story of the Bhagavad Gita, which is amazing, amazing story about Dharma, about finding your purpose, and all of the questions that come up for people, and the challenges and the ways that we deny it. So they get a video lecture each week, and then we have a live class. So it's a lot of time with me too. It's like, I think 30 hours of instruction and devotion that I'm, where I'm sitting there. And then we have a Facebook group too, where I'm active.
So everybody gets to kind of connect with each other and share their bigger yeses, and then kind of, riff off
their process. Really. Yeah. It's cool. That's obviously one of the coolest parts is they get to watch each other, and there's always cool connections made. And,
well, it's like going through something profound like that with other people. I mean, if you do it just all by yourself, it's daunting. Like you kind of don't know how to begin. You don't know where to start. But when you've got an amazing teacher that's really leading you through, and then you've got peers that are going through it, I think that's a really beautiful way to structure it. And tell us, what's the technology that people need to have if they want to join?
Oh, nothing. I mean, you need the internet. That's it. It's all on my website. That's where all the course materials live. And then Zoom. I mean, the meeting that we're using, I do Zoom for the live classes, and that's it. Awesome. So that's when, where part of what I talk about is like how nothing is wasted. Before I did this, before I transitioned into what I'm doing now, I worked in marketing and advertising, digital marketing and advertising for 20 years. So I love creating, the website and all of the technology behind it has played into this. And it's, people realize that too, like, oh, this 15 years that I've spent teaching or whatever isn't divorced from what I want to do. It always, nothing is ever wasted, you know?
I love that. I literally just wrote down, nothing is ever wasted. I feel like that's a great book title.
Yeah, it is.
Right?
Maybe you should do it.
And I'll cite you and you'll write the foreword.
Well, it's important because I think so many people come into sobriety or into this course thinking like, I've wasted so much time.
Yeah.
You know, and that can be a true story. Like, you can waste your life. I think you can. But you have, Paulo Coelho has this beautiful post he wrote years ago called The Magic Instant. And the thing is, like, you have the chance at every moment to turn your life around. And I totally believe that. And I also believe everything we've done up until that point. I don't know about you, but I don't regret one single day that I spent drinking.
Me neither.
That's a lot of years and a lot of pain. I don't regret any decisions that I've made or things that I've done. I don't regret one single piece of that because I see that it all led me to now. And that can sound like a really trite, aphorism or whatever, but it's true. I can see that, you know, even especially the really painful stuff.
Oh, I'm just nodding my head over here. It's so true. I have done some of the most shameful things. I was just actually sharing with my boyfriend last night, something that I did when I was in my early 20s. And I was just like, oh, I can't believe I did that. But there's still no regret.
No.
Right? Like, there's still, because I feel the way I feel about it now. Like, I didn't feel that way then. And
right.
I
oh my God,
some of that way then, but you know, I didn't feel the full impact of it back then. And just sort of recounting it to him last night, I was just like, I can't fucking believe some of the shit that I've done. Like, so
no, I can't either. And you know, I think that's what is so beautiful about recovery, is that we have been to those really tough places. You know, nobody comes here easily. And recovery is only one door. I mean, we all have something that, if we live long enough, we all have something that really pushed us to the limits of what we thought we could do, or the limits of ourselves. Right.
But it's funny because I sit here thinking that without every single, even those few horrible things that I really wish that I could just erase, you know, sometimes, but it's like, no, if not for every single little moment along the way, you and I would not be sitting here having this conversation about the work that you are doing in the world. Like, this
totally. And I wouldn't be able, you wouldn't be able to teach what you teach. And I wouldn't be able to teach what I teach if I hadn't actually gone through some shit.
I know.
Yeah. And we focus on that a lot we spend about half the time in the Bigger Yes looking back, because I think you do need to get really clean on where you've come from. And then about half the time looking forward.
Well, I love it. I love the sounds of it. Where can people find out more? We'll repeat this at the end, but for people just as thinking, oh my gosh, I want to go online right now and find it, where can they go?
Yeah, it's on my website on lauramccowan.com/yes. I mean, you'll see it all over my site if you forget the yes part, but you can register there. Registration is open until, I don't know when this goes up, Sarah, but registration is open until March 30th. So next Friday. Or until it fills up.
And so how many students do you have at one time?
The last time I had about 120, and I raised the price because I changed the program. I added quite a few things to it, and I'm going to make it a smaller group. So I think I will have it max out at 50 or 60.
And that just gives you a real opportunity to connect one-on-one and to really go deep with people's individual stories and work. Yeah.
That's what I wanted. So
that makes sense. Okay. I love it. We can talk more about that as we continue on, but I want to go deep into your story. I feel like I know you like a sister already, but I know there's a lot of stuff that I don't know about you. It's funny because of course I've followed your work for a couple, several years now.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think about our moms as being almost the same person.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Very similar in a lot of ways.
Oh, that's so funny.
I remember one time you were sharing that she was like Blanche Devereaux. I was like,
Yes. She's so great.
I love her.
But yeah,
we love our moms. But it was
funny.
Yeah, so it was awesome. So I want to go back. I want to give people a sense of how you were raised, kind of your upbringing, your childhood, and then what led you to drinking, and then how that time of your life looked, and then of course how you got out of that addiction and where you are. That'll bring us full circle to where you are today.
Okay. Well, so I grew up. I grew up in Colorado in a pretty like white middle class town, very small town, but my parents got divorced when I was 6, and that really, I don't remember much before that, but that really started a part of me that I started to manage what was going on outside of me, manage the feelings that were going on between my parents and stuff like that, which ended up, it plays a big part into, I think, why I ended up drinking. And look, I don't know that we can ever really tell like what the true reasons are. And I think there's so many factors, but I look back and I can see a few trends in my childhood. One is that I left myself very early, meaning I realized how sad and angry my dad was about the divorce, but I think just in general. And I was so uncomfortable with that I started to leave myself to try to manage it. Mm-hmm.
And when you say leave yourself to try to manage it, what kind of tools did you use as a young
child? I'll do whatever I need to do to show everyone that I'm okay. Like, it's okay. Mm-hmm. I've got this, mm-hmm. And that, and so you leave. I didn't pay attention to what was going on with me. I didn't think that there was any space for that. Mm-hmm. And I didn't know. I started not knowing how I actually felt. Mm-hmm. Or thought about things, and that you start doing that really young, and that is the start of a very profound disconnection, right? Mm-hmm. And a very deep insecurity. Mm. So I and that.
Can I ask? So were you raised by your mom or your dad?
Both. So I spent time, but more with my mom. I was with my dad on the weekends. Mm-hmm. I love my dad so much, but he is a really difficult person, and he would say that. And there was a lot of volatility in that home, in that relationship. He has his own shit to work out, and I get it now, but as a child, it was really, really painful and difficult. I have one brother. On the outside, our life looked very good. In a lot of ways it was. Look, I never had to need for anything. I was taken care of. But there were, between my parents, by the time up until now, if you go put it this way, by the time I graduated from college, there was 7 marriages and divorces between them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. I know everyone else has that reaction. Wow, that's a lot. So a lot of your life is this way. Here's your new family. And then it's gone. Mm-hmm. And that I think I look back on that, and it's, I said I learned to leave myself and just show that I'm okay. I really did that with, mm-hmm. I remember people telling me, my dad would say it, or my mom's friends would say it, you're so resilient, you're so strong. And I thought that was just the way that you showed that was just by powering on. It wasn't resilience. It was pure, what do you call it? Tamping down. Mm-hmm. Just go, just keep going. Mm-hmm. Whoop, sorry. So I got to, by the time I got to college, let's go back. You wanted to know how I started drinking,
yeah,
right?
And I actually also want to kind of touch in on this, just because I know there are a lot of people watching and listening that they come from broken families, and they can relate to this very much. My parents stayed married until my father passed away, and so I don't have that experience. But so what it's sounding like is that when people were saying you're so resilient, you were just adapting all the time. So you weren't rebelling at all. You were always accepting of all of these new partners and new, like,
I didn't rebel against those changes. I mean, I rebelled by, you know, doing normal teenage shit, but I wasn't like, fuck this, or this isn't okay. It was just like, yeah, this is where we're going next, you know, new family, another divorce, another, you know.
Wow. And can you go back to yourself in those early years? And did you actually feel that way, or did you know you were putting on an act to be resilient?
No, I didn't know.
You just
I didn't know.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know. I think as kids, you just do what you think you need to do.
Yeah.
And
no, you thought that you needed to be okay with everything. You thought that
yeah. And I really, I mean, it comes out later, right?
Yeah.
Like how fucking pissed off you are.
Yeah.
But no, I just rolled with it, you know, and it's hard to tell these stories because it's like trying to condense, you know, so much information into one coherent story. So I'm obviously leaving details out, but the overall theme where I tried to just be okay with everything. And I was also a really sensitive kid, and I didn't figure out ways to, like, I just tried to not know that. You know, I didn't put that into any sort of outlet, or I didn't have people that I talked to about what I was actually feeling. So what that meant was I started to just lie really young. You know, I started to lie about what was going on with me. And that built a really long, again, this like divide between how I presented and what was actually going on on the inside.
Yeah. Okay.
That didn't really end until that just kept going. Until I got sober, really.
Yeah.
You don't even know you're doing it.
You don't even know you're doing it. And it's like, and that's where that pattern of lying, and that's, you know, I know a lot of people say, you know, addicts and people that struggle with addiction, like, we just become the best liars. And it's like, yeah. And a lot of us started really young. I lied constantly as a kid.
It's a survival mechanism. I mean, I lied for good reasons. You know, I really did. And you become numb to it because I don't think it's just addict. I think we lie. There's this great Bessel van der Kolk quote that said, recovery for most people is learning to tell the truth, including about telling the truth about the ways that you manage to survive. And I feel like that's what it is about. Like, you think towards the end of an addiction, you really think this thing is keeping you alive, and you're going to fucking lie about it because to not do that means you're going to die.
Oh my God. Yeah. Take this thing away. And like, then what? I
mean, and I'm dust. Yeah. So,
yeah. Okay. So you're a kid, you're still young. When's the first time that you try alcohol? How did that all come about?
I mean, I grew up in, again, like one of the dynamics in my family was just everybody drank. It was just a very normal thing. I thought that's what adults did. I grew up around a lot of alcoholism, and but I didn't know that's what it was. I just thought people drank and adults drank. That's what you got to do. And so I don't even really remember my first drink, but it was I was 14 or 15 when I started, and I was just messing around.
Were you by yourself or with friends, or like how did
I was with friends? Yeah. I mean, I lived in a very small town. There wasn't much to do. People started drinking and doing drugs really early.
Yeah.
So I started around then. I didn't get too into it though, because I was an athlete and I was afraid, like, there were very strict rules. If you got caught drinking, then you were off the team. And I didn't get too into it until like the end of college, or the end of, high school. And then it was, my family owned a restaurant. It was very like normal for everybody to drink. And by the time I graduated from high school, it was like, she's allowed to just, she's allowed to drink here. go for it.
Like your parent, like your family?
Yeah. And the staff. And it was just like, it felt, it was like drinking is the thing you get to do when you grow up.
Mm-hmm.
And now you're old enough, so fucking go for it.
Even though you're like 18 and the drinking age is 21?
Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I know.
Yeah. It's just,
I'm going to college. I drive a car. Like,
yep.
So
I have a distinct memory. My 18th birthday, the server comes over and pours me a glass of wine because I've been drinking with my parents for over a year at that point.
I know.
And my dad, anyway, so I'm just saying, I was 18. Like I was in here in Canada, the age is 19 for drinking. And my dad was like, yeah, it's her 18th. And I'm like, Dad, like kicking him under the table. Like I'm 19.
Right.
Ooh, crazy. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so I have one distinct memory that I go back to, which is when I developed a pretty bad eating disorder. All this shit is linked. Like I developed a pretty bad eating disorder at the end of high school. It was totally a method to control, what was going on. I didn't know that, but I developed a pretty bad eating disorder. And on my graduation party, we had it at the restaurant. Everyone was drinking. It was during the day on like a Sunday. And I was pouring myself like a big Bacardi Limon and Diet Coke, tall, disgusting drink. And it was like my third one, pouring it myself. I'm 17. Mm-hmm. And I'm pretty buzzed, and I felt all the shit that I felt, all the insecurity and like obsession about my body and like nervousness around, like I wanted so badly to be like seen as like a desirable thing to men, and all that stuff that I constantly, like I was going off to college that just weighed on me so heavily was gone when I drank. Mm-hmm. And I remember pouring this third drink and I was buzzed, and I thought, I felt so powerful, and I thought, if I can just stay like this, I'm going to be okay. Mm. And I chased that feeling for 15 years. Mm-hmm. Like, if I can just stay drunk, I will be okay. And I knew even then that was a dangerous proposition. Mm-hmm. So I chased that. I mean, that was basically the premise of my drinking for the next 15 years.
Chasing that feeling of being okay and not having to worry so much about everything.
Right. Mm-hmm. Right. Because it really does. It works.
I mean, it works. The mental release. Oh God. Yeah. Yeah. Keep going. I'm loving your story.
I chased that. I mean, I knew in college, I started to know that I drank a little bit differently than people, like, or I felt different about it afterwards. Like I always had this like racking shame afterwards because I would black out and I didn't know what happened. Mm-hmm. And I was always kind of embarrassed. Mm-hmm.
And would you ask people what happened last night? Yeah, I was like that too. I would just wait for people to tell me stuff.
To give you information. Like, oh. Right. You start like collecting clues the next day. Like, yes. How bad was I? Like what happened?
Starting with looking out my window to see, okay, my car is there. I clearly drove it home.
Oh yeah, that game. Oh my God. So I started to know that, but I also, part of my story is that I was super high achieving and I didn't, I looked like everybody else and I did well and things were happening for me and I always held it up. The worse the drinking got, the more I held it up on the other end to show that I was okay.
Did any of your close friends ever ask you if things were okay, or did they ever question it? Did any of that come up for you?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, before I met my husband, I was in my 20s living in Boston. I had a really close group of girlfriends and we drank a lot, like 5 nights a week, hardcore. And I was always the messiest one, to the point where it would be like, okay, who's taking care of Laura tonight? Mm-hmm. And it was like a funny but not funny thing. Mm-hmm. And when I met my husband, who would be my husband, they all joke like how relieved they were, because it calmed me down for a while. Because I didn't want to fuck it up with him. And I was like on another high. I was like in love, you know, but it also, they didn't have to take care of me like that anymore.
Mm-hmm.
There was someone else watching me. And so that happened. And then it started to be him, you know, that he would just be like, can you take it easy? Like, maybe just don't, you know, and we all drank so much. That's the thing. I was surrounded by people who drank a lot. So it was never, you know, I didn't always stand out, but.
And I always found that was the hardest when people who drank a lot with me were trying to tell me, I was like, go fuck yourself. Like, you and I just drank last night together,
right.
the same amount pretty much. And
right.
I would just be so defensive about it because it's just like that leader in a corporation that, you know, is doing this stuff and then telling you not to do the stuff. And you're like, who are you? And that's how I felt about it. Same with
I know. I was never like, fuck you. I just went in like, oh my God, like
mm-hmm.
I was so afraid. I mean, it's like this fear and this shame just like builds into this cloud where you're just chasing it all the time. It's like, I have to drink to make that go away. And then I have to perform more so that like there are other reasons to love me, you know, like you can't not love me because I'm such a good person.
Yes. Yeah. And it's so funny when we can fast forward to what you're doing in your life now. Like that was all there then.
Oh, it was all there all
right?
the time.
Oh,
yeah. And then it got really,
so you're out of college and then you meet your husband or meet your would-be husband and then you get married fairly quickly. Is that how that?
Yeah. But I mean, by then it was my late 20s. So there's a whole decade of shit in there that it was really messy, you know, but not horrifically. Like it was a progression.
Yeah.
And I went to grad school. I got my MBA and I was doing really well at work. And, you know, like things didn't look that bad. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they didn't look bad at all. They looked really good. Like I had moved to Boston. I had created this whole life for myself. I had great friends. And then, then I got married. I was wasted on my wedding night. We had my daughter pretty quickly after that. And that's when things really turned because for a few reasons, it was a really stressful time, but it was also like, I knew I didn't want to be married. And I drank hard to not know that.
Mm-hmm. You know that you didn't want to be married before you got married?
No. No. I mean, that's a very complicated statement, you know, like now I know what was playing into that, but the feeling was just, I can't stay in this. This is not what I want to be doing. And then how do you not know that? What do I do? You know, I loved him and then we're having a kid and we have this whole life, but so I drank at that. I mean, I drank hard to like not know that. And the more I drank, the messier it got, you know. You have to lie. I lied a lot. There were other men. There were a million secrets.
And is this before you had your daughter or is this after?
No, it was after. Yeah. So then we also have a kid, you know, a baby. And it's so funny. I don't think about this all that often lately. Like going back to that time, it was just, I don't know how we do it, Sarah. Like, I don't know how we manage all of it. You know, I just don't know. I can barely handle being tired now.
Honestly.
and regular tired.
And you've got a 7-year-old. Is she 7 now?
She's 9.
She's 9. Oh my.
Yeah. It's wild to say that. So it got really rough then. And that was when my husband, I finally, when she was about 1, I finally went to him and I had a couple of I was getting panic attacks and I finally said to him, like, I need help, like real help. I didn't say help with the drinking. I stopped being able to function. I was super anxious. I couldn't eat. I lost like 40 pounds. The wine wasn't working anymore. It just like added fuel on to my anxiety. So I said, I need help. And I was like self-harming and stuff. I need help. And that's when I started to see a psychologist or psychiatrist, but Um,
And did that help? Was that an avenue?
no, I just got a bunch of medication.
Yep.
That's when I started doing benzos.
Yep.
Really is what happened.
Mm-hmm.
And Ambien.
Mm-hmm.
And that drugs were a big part of my story too. Like I did all the drugs. I did a lot of cocaine. I did drugs to sort of manage the drinking.
And did you do the cocaine and the other drugs while you were married and had Alma?
Yep.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I did.
Can I ask a question? And I'm only asking not to be disrespectful in any way, but I know that there are mothers that are watching this that have drank alcohol during their pregnancy. Did you drink alcohol during your pregnancy?
A little bit.
Mm-hmm.
I honestly would have drank more. I know I would have, but I had like a physical reaction to it. Like our bodies know.
Mm-hmm.
And I also, my husband was watching me very closely.
Mm-hmm.
But that was my first sort of period of sobriety.
Yeah.
And I was fucking miserable.
Yeah.
Like I realized how much I depended on alcohol.
Mm-hmm. So you were realizing this stuff internally, but you were never talking to your husband about that. You were just saying that you needed to.
I would joke to other people like, I can't wait to jump off the sobriety cliff after I have my kid, and I would joke about it.
Yeah.
And I did like fast and hard as soon as I was done. And that was, but that's the fucked up thing. It was a joke that everyone was like, no shit. Like all the other moms were like, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mommy juice. Mommy needs her wine.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And so are you doing benzos, cocaine, and alcohol after having your baby?
Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Those are some of the most shameful kind of times was I nursed my daughter high on cocaine. I drank, I put her in a lot of danger many times.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I wonder, and we can't fast forward through time, but I wonder when you'll have these conversations with her.
I know.
Yeah.
It's getting to be that age where she started going to meetings with me when she was like 5 because I just had to go. Yeah. And she would say, so she knows that I don't drink. She's really proud of it, but we've never had those conversations. Like,
age appropriate, right? She's
right.
Okay. So you have a baby, you're doing drugs, you're drinking, it's really ramping up. How are things going in your marriage?
Oh, they're complete awful, awful. I caused a lot of damage and pain, in my marriage. We split up when Alma was 3. We separated. And it was really awful. It was about as bad as you can imagine it getting, when he left. And that was another turning point for the drinking, all of these things were really, I didn't look at it that way then, but I can so clearly see it now. They were just, I wanted nothing to be in the way of me and my drinking.
Yes.
And he never said like, you're a problem. It's a problem. He knew it wasn't okay, but he wasn't familiar. He didn't know. Most people don't know what addiction looks like. Mm-mm. So, and I hid so much from him that, he couldn't have known, but that's when it got the worst, was that year, between 2012 and 2013, when he wasn't there to watch me anymore. And it got really scary really fast.
And I'm assuming you had joint custody from that point. So you had weekends to yourself.
Yeah. I had weekends to myself. When I had my daughter, I would have my mom take care of her because I just couldn't deal. I had stretches of time. And most of the time I wouldn't come home in those 3-day stretches. I would be partying the whole time. And then I would go into parenting, just racked with, I was never not hungover. Oh, I know, I have a kitty.
Yeah, let's see. Wait, you have to talk. Hang on, wait. It's on me. You say something. What's your kitty's name?
Jack.
Look.
Say hi. I have 2 kitties, but he's been curious the whole time we've been talking. He's been like,
he's such a sweetie. He was the first one you got, right?
No, I got Piper first.
Oh, Piper, that's right. And they look similar then, because
yeah, they look like brother and sister, but they're not.
They're so cute. Congratulations on getting 2 little kitties.
Oh, kitties.
Yeah, they're adorable. Okay, so oh my gosh, where are we? We are so your marriage has ended. You're now, weekends are kind of really ramping up, and then so walk us through to how it goes to when you kind of hit your first bottom, or what, your first time where you're deciding maybe I need to make a change.
Yeah. I got a DUI in May of 2013.
Mm-hmm.
And it was, all DUIs suck, but it was really bad.
Were you by yourself?
I was by myself. I spent the night in jail. I don't remember any of it.
Mm-hmm.
I was completely blacked out. And the scariest part was that it barely registered.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, oh, everyone gets DUIs. I mean, yeah, it was but it did instill this like very deep fear in me. Like, I don't have control anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I know I don't.
Mm-hmm.
But I still didn't think the answer was to stop drinking.
Yeah.
I mean, my life was a mess.
Take that away.
Yeah. So, and then that July, my brother got married in Colorado, and Alma and I were there, and I left her in a hotel room for the night because I was blacked out and drinking. And that was because my family witnessed it, or they were there.
Okay. So the whole family is staying at a hotel because your brother's getting married. You leave Alma to go to put her to bed.
To go out. Yeah, I decided it would be okay to leave my 4-year-old. And I woke up somewhere else to lots of texts and calls, and I was busted, And that was what started me. I had to, not because I wanted to, but I had to do something because I could, it was then that my family said it, like, we're not drinking with you anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And
like the light is shining so hard on.
Yeah. And I that was fucking terrifying. Like, if I could do that the fact that I could do that to my daughter, really rocked me. And so I went a couple weeks later, I went to my first AA meeting.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't, it took about 1.5 years to really turn that ship around and for me to put together 30 days of sobriety.
Mm.
I resisted it about as hard as I could,
Mm-hmm.
as anyone could.
Mm-hmm.
It was too hard. It was too hard for me.
I want to talk about that as well. That 30 days stringing together, there's really people often, I know you get messages all the time, and I get people sending me messages. I just got one last night from a beautiful woman who's saying, I don't think I'm an alcoholic, but I binge drink. I'm worried about it. I have alcoholism in my family.
Yeah.
And I mean, I know we get all of these messages, and so much of our work, I think, is just helping people to string together a little bit of time, because there's nothing that can be done really until we can string together just a little bit of time. Like, you've got to get from here to here before you can, and it's like, so I want to ask you, maybe now's not the time, but I don't want to forget. I want to ask you, sort of what your tools are and how you don't, drink in those first early shaky days and weeks and months.
Oh my God.
When all you want to do, like that, when it's all you know how to do, how do you not do it? How do you not drink?
Right. Well, you've got the fact that you're physically addicted, which is, it's not just like I thought that was not real. Like, I didn't believe that I was physically addicted. And then I went, you watch yourself like doing it. Mm-hmm. And I realized, it was brought to my attention, like, your brain is going into this mode where you think you have to do that. Like, because you can feel it happen. It's almost like you go into this fight or flight state where you're like watching yourself do something. Like, I would watch myself pull into the liquor store. I would watch myself, all of a sudden I'd just be drinking. And it was like, I know better. I have lifetimes of evidence that this is not a good idea, and yet I'm doing it.
Mm-hmm.
So you're physically addicted, emotionally addicted, spiritually like sick.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it's also just like conditioning. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
I drank for alcohol was linked to every single piece of my life.
Yep.
Relationships, my daily activities, time of day, seasons, all of it. It was
how I could relate to my family. Like for me,
how you relate to how you have a conversation, how you go on. I mean, I was newly single, like how you go on a date, how you have sex, how you, all of it. I would see texts from certain men come up on my phone and I would like need to drink texts, because those people I associated with like that escaping. It's so hardcore.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, that almost makes me feel like that's such a piece of it too. When we, in those early days, like sometimes you do need to just turn off your phone. Do not drive that same way that you typically go past the
totally. But the number of obstacles that you can face in one hour, one day is it's like amazing, and to realize to get through one day. I mean, we fall so easily, not we, like everybody. We're conditioned to do the things that we have done before.
Yeah. And in early sobriety, like, it's almost like it's not like you want to, but you want to,
Of course you do. And it's like, I'll just do it. There are a million reasons to do it. It's like, I'll just deal with it tomorrow, or it'll be easier some other time. I mean, and then all these things that come up, these feelings that you haven't felt for maybe ever, and memories and guilt and shame and regret, and like, how the fuck am I going to get?
Yeah.
And these really long held beliefs that like sobriety sucks.
Yeah.
Like,
oh my God. Yep.
I don't want that life.
I look down on people who didn't drink. I feel ashamed of that now, but it is part of my story. But I looked at people who didn't drink and I thought they were the biggest losers.
Yeah, of course. And, but then I also had put together, like in that year and a half, I spent a lot more time sober than drinking. Like I didn't drink all that often anymore. But it felt like I was still drinking because it was still a possibility that whole time. You know what I mean? It was never.
So how did you do it in that year? How did you, so you chose AA, and maybe you can share why you chose AA, but you chose AA, and how did you go a year with sort of not drinking, as like, what was going on?
I mean, there were heavy consequences if I drank. Like, I had to tell my ex-husband. I told a lot of friends because I was trying to like convince myself from the outside. Like I was trying to put in measures so that I wouldn't, but I didn't really want to not do it. So I had like a very compartmentalized existence. I drank alone a lot. When I drank, it was almost always alone or with work people who were like the last to know that I wasn't drinking.
Yeah.
Because I could get away with it with them. But I did AA because I didn't know what else to do. Like I just thought that's what people did. And I met a few people there that really helped me, and meetings gave me a place to go. That's why I did it. I didn't know what else to do. I had a couple people that I knew that were sober, and that's what they did. So I just did that.
I'm so glad you're bringing that up, only because that's exactly why my partner Roger and I have launched this initiative. And it's simply to show people that it is one way. It is not the only way. There are so many other pathways and modalities and patchworks and whatever you want to call it.
There are. And I have kind of come around a couple times with AA. Like I just did the steps again, and I will say like, that the steps being the program of AA is just, it's what I've learned from my sponsor is it's just ancient spiritual wisdom that can be found in all kinds of different tracks. What can get difficult or beautiful about AA is that there's also a lot of people and the program changes its shapes and wherever it is. And, I don't want to go down that whole path, but no, it's not the only way. I mean, this is what a lot of my, my path has been, is like figuring out what my path is and how I want to do this for myself, because I never bought into AA wholesale. I didn't. And, but I also, I wouldn't have gotten sober without it. Like, I really do believe that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
so,
it's, you know, Veronica Valley, I interviewed her and she shared that, you know, similar sentiments where the 12 steps, you know, they're beautiful. They're ancient wisdom when you look at them, and doing that work is life-giving and life-changing. And then there's the fellowship, and, you know, sometimes it can work in your favor and sometimes it, you know, it's not always the right place for you to be, but no matter what I think we're doing here is just showing that some people use AA for a short time, and that seems to be a fairly common story with a lot of people that I'm working with on this project. But then other people use it for a lifetime. So I mean, it's just, again, whatever kind of fits.
I think the point is you have to do something that really, I believe that you have to have some kind of spiritual path. And I don't mean that in like you have to meet God or something, but I think you have to go through something that really gets at the root of the issues that we're dealing with. It was never about the
drinking is the symptom, right? Like that is, we got to get to the reason why we drank in the first place.
Yeah. And to heal that. And I think that takes a lot of different things. I mean, I use all the tools, therapy, yoga. I did writing, for me, really saved my life. Creativity continues to save my life. Teaching, connecting with, like, having real relationships, true relationships with people. I mean, all those, learning how to take care of myself, all those things keep me sober, you know, and it's not, it can't, I don't think it can ever just look like one or two dimensional.
And I really loved what you were just saying about the way that you take care of yourself in your recovery. And it makes me think that what an amazing mother you are to your daughter by being just who you really are, not pretending to be anything else, just being who you really are. I think that's the greatest gift that anybody can ever give to their children. I'm not a mother, and I just, you know, we see all of these massive crazy birthday parties at 1 year old, or Cinderella parties at 6 years old, all these crazy things, and the money that's spent. And honestly, I look at being able to be who you really are and showing up as you are for that little person that's watching you. They don't give a shit about the money, about the accoutrement, about the, you know, and all that.
I know.
Stuff. They really don't. They really just want time and dedication to them, and a nod that they matter and that you're listening. And
it's taken, I mean, I would say just this past retreat that I taught, literally last weekend, was the first time I felt like I don't ever want to travel for work without her again, if possible. You know, it's taken me almost 4 years to, like, be able to have that kind of connection with her. So I really want people to know how, like, the path is long and wide, and that is good news. Like, you can't possibly do it all at once. And it just keeps getting better and better. I mean, it gets hard and it gets harder. I had a guy, one of the first guys that I told that I was getting sober. He was a partner in an agency I used to work at, and he had like 20 some years of sobriety. Right. And I went to him and we had coffee, in July of 2013. And he was like, you know, it gets better, like, when you first get sober, because you're not destroying anything anymore. And then it gets worse. And then it just gets different. And I was like, it's true. That's really true. It just gets different.
Yeah, that's such a great point, because I do think that even us in recovery, we can tend to highlight all the benefits of being sober. And there are so many. Living in the truth, living in the light, all of that. It is true. It is better. But it's hard, and it can be challenging. Like, life still happens, shit still goes wrong, and, you know, pain is still there. It's all part of it. And none of us, I don't think, are ever trying to say that it's not. And I think that using that word different, it's different. It is different.
It's just different. It's just different. And I wouldn't trade it for anything, but it's not easier.
It is amazing. I attribute a lot of my recovery to you, because 16 years ago, I got sober and I was so ashamed of the label that I just refused to wear it. I pretended to go another way. I pretended that I was into health and fitness and told all my friends, that's why I quit drinking. They're like, weird. Okay, whatever. And that was how I just
decided. Extreme, Sarah.
Yep. So I moved, I changed what I was doing. I went back to school and I just did everything differently. And I just completely changed my life. And yet I was sober but I was still lamenting that old life. Like I was still looking back and thinking, like it was, you know, am I going to really be doing this forever? Am I never going to drink again? And I was still playing with it and toying with it. And I relapsed 4 years later for a brief time. And then I really did know that, okay, I really can't do this. And I continued on my path. But until I was able to hear voices like yours in the world speaking out, and you were in fairly early sobriety at the time. You were like a year and a half or two.
Drinking.
Yeah.
I was thinking about that this morning, writing an email. I was like, God, I don't know what possessed me to just think it was okay to do that, but it was okay.
It was more than okay. What happened is you started to build, you know, this community around you of people saying, I get you, like I hear you, I'm with you. And then you quit drinking throughout that process. And then you know, really openly spoke out about it. And so for me, watching you do that in early, I'm like at that time, 14 years I've been at this thing. And I'm like, I haven't said a word to anybody. I haven't shared this with anybody. I have kept this secret to myself. And that's truly why.
What a big burden.
It was a big burden. And that's why I started Sobriety Starts Here. Because it was like, you know what? I want to
look at you now.
Yeah. I wanted to pay it forward. I wanted to honestly look to people like you and to so many other influential, amazing, especially for me, women that are speaking out early on in sobriety and saying, shattering the label, shattering the preconceived notions about what it means to be a woman in recovery. And so that's exactly why we're doing all of this. So hearing your story has always been so powerful to me. And I love continuing to watch the journey of you and to see where you are. I love
watching all of us. It's very, it's, you know, you don't get to see people change too much in life, really change. And we really change in sobriety, like a lot, or we have the potential to. It's really wonderful.
It is so true. It's so funny how often people will say people don't really change. And it's like, oh yeah, they do. We've seen
they do. I see them every day. Like drastic change. Yeah.
So you would say that then that was sort of leaving your daughter in the hotel at 4 years old. That was your rock bottom.
That's what started me on the path toward in a different direction.
Yeah. Right? And then so a year later, it took a year before you finally started to string 30 days together.
Yeah. And then I didn't know, you know, when my last day one, I didn't know that it was my last day one. I kind of gave up saying that it would be. But then, you know, I also, it wasn't any big, like tragic, you know, bang of a situation. It was just, I was so exhausted. And I really knew that there was nothing left for me in drinking. I just knew at like a soul level. And I just kind of started doing that. I started writing a lot. That was honestly what pulled me out. And then connecting with the people, you know, I mean, the reason I teach the bigger yes is because there's this quote by in the Gospel of Thomas. Am I getting that wrong? Please forgive me if I am. Where he says, if you bring forth what is within you, it will save you. And if you do not bring forth what is within you, it will destroy you. And I think a lot of what was destroying me was not bringing forth what I have in me. It's like a soul death, you know that you're not, it wasn't just that I was like actively destroying my life drinking. It was that I was not living this life that I was given, this gift that I had. And I had to figure out what those gifts were, and I'm still figuring it out. But I know that I felt, I forgot about myself when I started writing. You know, I forgot about this like burden of my story and myself when I did that. And when I teach, I feel the same way. And when I'm creating, I feel the same way. And I think that's what I mean when like we have a purpose. It's not just to, it's really to ultimately, I believe, to serve. And once it always, that the path always leads there. You know, you build up your internal house and you tend to that. And then the ultimate path for everybody, I believe, is to serve. Even if you're creating, you know, even if you're a potter and you're creating beautiful mugs,
Absolutely.
and that is your art, you're serving, because the way you feel when you see someone in their elements is, it's beauty in its most raw form, and it's life-giving, right? Like, even if you see someone, like I think about my grandmother and the way she was when she was cooking.
Yes.
And it was like that, she was in her element. And it's like, we need as many people as possible to be in their element.
Oh, I think that's so beautifully said. And it reminds me of the many people, I've seen so many testimonials and people sharing about the Bigger Yes, and how many people say it's been life-changing. And being able to watch you in your element, I think people are really connecting with that. It's like, it's just the truth, right? It just feels like the truth. And I know Oprah.
Well, it feels like, I think, and I'm sure you feel this way about parts of your work too. Like, it is about me, but it's so not about me. It's like, this is the thing that I learned, and this is, and I feel it when I'm doing certain things. Like, I really want to say that, pointing out, like, you forget yourself. We spend so much time either thinking we're amazing or mostly thinking that we're a piece of shit. And it's like, when you actually can do a thing that gets you out of the way of that, and you become this, like, you become a channel for whatever it is, it gives your life meaning. I mean, that's the reason why Viktor Frankl was able to write Man's Search for Meaning, while he, based on people being in concentration camps, and like the most dire experience that you could possibly imagine, the ones that were able to sustain in that were the ones that felt like they had meaning, like what they were going through had meaning. And I think that's ultimately what will save us, is to feel like, even in the worst of circumstances, what you're doing has meaning, you're going to want to live.
And how amazing that your work now is meaningful to yourself, and you are helping all the rest of us to find the meaning in our own lives. I think that's it's exactly what you're doing. And I know it's hard to hear that thing.
No, I'm working on that. I'm like, just thank you.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. No defensiveness. Just, yes, that is what I'm doing. That is what you are doing. It's amazing. It's truly awesome, Laura. I have a couple of questions that I want to ask you. I know that you've mentioned a few of your tools that you like to use. Are there any other tools that you like to use in sobriety?
I have finally started meditating, and that is as helpful as everyone has said. I do move my body a lot. Like, I'm a big believer in, we spend so much time disconnecting from our bodies, and our bodies have a really strong voice, and intuition is so much wiser than our mind voice. And so the more we can be embodied, it's not just like a thing to feel better, although of course it makes you feel better, or to look better, whatever. It really is, we live in this beautiful animal. And I think we neglect that so hard in addiction. I know we do. Creativity. I think that we are all creative people. I think human beings are creative. And I think that there's something really profound about creating for me.
I even love that, how you even said about your grandmother cooking. I mean, that it can be as simple as that.
Oh, totally. It's always as simple as that, I think, it's always as simple as that. Like, and creating some kind of a spiritual practice. Like, I think spirituality is very practical. Writing is spiritual practice for me. Prayer. I think creating patterns or creating habits that purposefully quiet you and connect you.
Yeah.
Is
you still go to AA meetings?
I am now again. Yeah. Going again. Working through the steps has been as profound as anything else. Yeah, I would say those are my main ones.
And I imagine that you connect so nicely with the group that you belong to in AA. Like,
I go, that part is tricky, like I'm just another person in those rooms, and like, I have, sometimes I hate it sitting there, but I see the value, and I've met the most amazing people. So yeah.
I love it. I'm curious because I know I've heard you talk about this before, and I want to share this because I haven't asked this question of other people, and I know you'll answer it really honestly. First of all, do you crave alcohol ever?
No.
Never?
No.
So you never have a feeling to drink, and then you never have to work through that feeling?
To specifically drink, I haven't wanted to drink in over 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
I want to escape.
Mm-hmm.
I want to not feel the things I feel, but alcohol has no pull anymore. It's not like I don't have to fight that.
Mm-hmm.
It's just not an option. Like, it stopped being an option. And I've also created enough new experiences that, like, it's not in my brain anymore. Like, there's no neurons that are firing going, drink, because it's just not part of the pathway. It's like there are a million other things I think of doing first.
I'm so happy that you brought that up, because that's another point to be made for people who, again, are watching this and they are in early days and they're thinking, how can I ever get to a point where I'm not going to want to do this thing that's all I want to do is this thing. And the time does come. Time and different experiences. You have to go through all the things that you went through before and not drink. Mm-hmm.
And then you have a new way you spend New Year's Eve. You have a new way that you go on a date. You have a new way that you have sex. You have a new way that you eat out at restaurants. But it literally takes going through all those experiences and, like, rewriting the way that you enjoy them.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a big cement truck outside. I don't know if I can hear that.
I feel like every time you record anything,
dude, it's insane. I can't escape it. I live, like, in a very calm place. But they find me.
But we think you live in New York City.
I know, I might as well.
What is, Laura, the best thing about being clean and sober?
I just honestly, no hangovers. Like, I'm just going to go with that. It never gets old.
Yep.
That crushing anxiety
mm-hmm.
is really the thing that kept me from drinking for that first year. I never, ever wanted to feel that again.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So yeah, mm-hmm. I mean, there are many other things, but that is like the gift that keeps on giving.
Isn't it the best, waking up on Sunday morning when it's bright and sunny in the morning? And I can even still remember back to those Sunday mornings where it was like, closed blinds.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hangovers are the worst.
Yeah.
My last question for you, Laura McCowan. What do you know for sure?
I love this question. The Oprah question.
It's the Oprah question.
Pain is our greatest teacher. It has messages for us. What else do I know for sure? I will go back to the bigger guess thing. I know for sure that every single person has a reason for being here. I know that for sure. Mm-hmm. And that thing will save you.
Mm. And it's about finding that thing, because you have it. So
you have it. You got to locate it. It's like going on a treasure hunt.
Mm-hmm. Beautifully put. I love it. So I know you do other things as well. You run the Spiritualish podcast.
I run the Spiritualish podcast. We have a community. It used to be Path. Now it's called The Hive. That is I still teach with Meadow. It's part of the Spiritualish podcast. It's like the member community around that. That's all on bespiritualish.com, bespiritualish.com. I run workshops and retreats, although I have none scheduled because I have to focus on finishing this book that comes out in September.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Can you share the title of the book yet?
No.
Okay. We'll have to
That will be soon, very soon, like within the next month or so.
Yay. Oh, your words are, I know people have said it before, your words are delicious. They really are. Your words are just, sometimes when I'll see that you've posted something on Instagram, I notice, and then I'll finish up a few things that I have to do because I want to take time. Your writing is beautiful. Awesome. Yeah. Your blog is beautiful as well. So that's on lauramccowan.com. So I think everyone can kind of just go to lauramccowan.com.
Everything's there.
Yeah. Fantastic. This time has been truly some of my favorite.
I'm so glad that we got to finally do it.
Me too. Thank you so much.
I'm so grateful that you're doing this. Thank you.
Thank you. We wouldn't have it without you. So we wouldn't be here if it weren't for the people being willing and open to share these beautiful, raw, vulnerable stories. And I just love you to pieces. Thank you so much for being with me. Thank you.
All right.
To get access to all of the free videos and interviews, visit sobrietystartshere.com.